We have made it out of the dark days. The NFL season is back, which means we are going to be doing our preview and predictions for every single game this NFL season. Now, if you have been watching, I have been doing the Premier League. However, I did miss this last week, unfortunately. This was a lot was going on, kind of overlooked making the Premier League video, so that will be returning this week. We still have college football content coming out this week, but for the most part, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be fun. The NFL season is here, starting in 2 days, Thursday. Big day in football. We got the Ravens and the Chiefs. Should be a very, very good game. And for all of you fantasy football lovers, this is a game that features a lot of talent that you probably, if you didn't draft, are going to be important pieces to teams in your league. The Lamar Jacksons, the Zay Flowers, Derrick Henry on a new team, Travis Kelce, Pat Mahomes, maybe Xavier Worthy if you're in a deep league, Rashee Rice. This game is loaded with talent, loaded with guys that is going to be very impactful this season. And we are going to be doing this year with confidence points. Now, it's a little bit easier than the Premier League because, believe it or not, they got a cool little app called the Yahoo Fantasy Sports that, here we go, I can do it. I don't know if you can see that. I already have my picks in there. And with the first game, I believe it or not, I need the Ravens to win, but I did predict that the Chiefs will win. I have 2 confidence points on that game. I do think the Chiefs will ultimately win the game, but I do need to see the Ravens win. I hope I do get that game wrong because I'm not a big fan of the Chiefs to begin with, so hopefully the Ravens do win that, but I do have the Chiefs winning. So there we have it, the Chiefs with 2 confidence points. Next, we have Green Bay versus Philadelphia, a game that I literally did not pick a winner to until last night, and that's because I'm kind of buying into this Green Bay hype a little bit, and I say that while wearing a Caleb Williams jersey. So maybe you should listen. I think Green Bay's got a team. I think they got a team, and they're a little bit of a dangerous team. I mean, a lot of young receivers there: Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks. They got Luke Musgrave on that team. I believe Tucker Kraft is there to catch passes from Jordan Love. They brought in Marshawn Lloyd at the running back. They have Josh Jacobs now, who is a couple years removed from being the leading rusher in the NFL. This team is very good offensively. This team is going to be very good offensively. And then you got the Eagles. The Eagles, we kind of know the same song and dance with them. They have Jalen Hurts. They have Devontae Smith. They have A.J. Brown. They have Dallas Goedert when healthy. They now have Saquon Barkley. This game is going to be a fun game. This game is going to be a close game. And I ultimately do have 1 confidence point on the Eagles. But don't sleep on the Packers this season. Next, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers with their new quarterback, Russell Wilson. They do have Justin Fields as well. Going up against another team with a new quarterback in Kirk Cousins, the Falcons. Now, this one's interesting. I do have some fantasy stake here with George Pickens in my dynasty league. I probably have George Pickens in a few leagues actually. Very, very high on him. But in my dynasty league, the league that I'm, the buy-in league, the big buy-in league, I need George Pickens to have a good game. And I'm hoping he does. But you look at the Falcons, they also has some interesting talent. They got obviously Drake London being there. Kyle Pitts is there for them. They could be another team when at the end of the day when you're talking about it and when you're thinking about it, they could be a little bit of a sleeper. They got Darnell Mooney there too. Casey Washington from Illinois if they decide to use the rookie. They got a little bit of a team. Obviously, Bijan's there. Algier is there. The Falcons' offense, I think they're going to have a little bit of a change of tune because last year, remember with Desmond Ridder, it wasn't really all that coherent. Nothing really happened. Kirk Cousins is there now, and if Kirk Cousins goes down, guess what? You got another Kirk Cousins on your team and Michael Penix Jr. Big arm, throws the ball very well, one of the best true passers in the rookie quarterback class. He knows how to run a team. He knows how to win. Went to the national championship with Washington. Made Indiana look good before he hit the portal to Washington. Michael Penix Jr. is legit. He's legit. It was just weird that he ended up getting drafted to the Falcons because Kirk Cousins was just picked up. But with that being said, I do have the Falcons winning with a 3-point confidence rating. That's just another game that I think could be either one's game. I don't think too much of either team at this point in time. The Falcons, I kind of want to be a little hesitant on. I think they could be very good, but I do want to have some hesitancy there because obviously this is the first time seeing it all meshed together, and I have frozen on the video. But the Steelers, I don't think the Steelers are going to be a great team this year. I think they'll probably be middle to lower pack. I couldn't see them finishing in the top 15 teams. I really don't. Russell Wilson, unless he turns back the clock a little bit with Pickens there, with Roman Wilson there, getting Najee Harris and Jalen Warren involved, then I don't really see it. Pat Freiermuth might have a big season. I do have him in some fantasy leagues. Russell Wilson and Justin Fields both like throwing to the tight end. So if you're still on a fantasy draft and you need a potential tight end one and you missed out on all those other guys, you missed out on the Kelce's, the Kittles, the Pitts, the McBrides, those guys, Laporta, if you missed out on those guys, then maybe Pat Freiermuth could be of service to you. Next, we got, and I've just realized I have a lot of home teams winning. Arizona against Buffalo. This is my 16-point confidence one. Arizona, I get it. They have Kyler Murray healthy. I get it that Marvin Harrison is there. I get it. Trey McBride had a good season last year. But outside of that, there's not much on that Arizona team. There's really not. They got one of my favorite players in Greg Dortch. But is he receiver 2? Is it Wilson? Zay Jones ain't going to be receiver 2. James Conner's there, but is he starting to slow down? I believe Trey Benson is a little banged up coming into the season as the rookie running back that they picked up. Then you look at the Bills, a new-look Bills team too. Receiver 1 potentially being Keon Coleman. Rookie. Khalil Shakir still there, still around. Dalton Kincaid potentially in for a big role this season. Another guy I would target in your fantasy drafts. Giving you a little bit of hints here on who I'd be targeting in my fantasy drafts. Dalton Kincaid's going to have a big year. He might be the primary target for Josh Allen. Then you look at the running back situation. Cook's still around, but they added Ray Davis. Could be maybe eating into some of what Latavius Murray did last season. I mean, the Bills, while it is a new look, I see the Bills still being a pretty good team, and I have them beating the Cardinals with 16 confidence points. Next, we got Tennessee at Chicago. Should be a good game for us, not for them. I think this is going to be very similar to the preseason game. The Bears, obviously, you all know the new look offense. We got Caleb Williams at quarterback. Shout out right here. Caleb Williams will be the starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears. We have obviously DJ Moore returning. We have Cole Kmet returning, but we have some new faces as well. We have DeAndre Swift at running back. And while we still have Roshan and Khalil Herbert, guess what? DeAndre Swift is RB1, and it is an upgrade. We have Keenan Allen, who might just be a slot receiver for us. And if you're looking at it and you're like, well, Keenan Allen as the third receiver on a team, that's crazy. That's how much talent the Bears have. That's ridiculous, right? Yeah, I know. Then you got Rome Odunze. Rome Odunze, one of the best receivers last year in college football, maybe the best receiver last year in college football. A lot of people said that he had a case to be the number one receiver on the board if it wasn't a year with Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr. So you got 3 really good receivers in this class, and you might have the best one in Rome Odunze, who played with the Falcons' backup QB. And, dude, I just give a lot of praise to Michael Penix. So he saw a lot of targets last year, a lot of big-time plays last year, high-stakes games last year. And you got Caleb Williams leading the pack with all that. It should be a fun time. And then defensively, you got Montez Sweat still back. They did make some moves on the defensive line after the preseason ended. While some of these players were getting cut, they were trading for them prior to them hitting waivers, that type of stuff, and trying to bolster it up there. I think we have one of the best defensive back rooms in the entire NFL. You look at Kyler Gordon being the third corner on the team, and that's crazy to me. Tyreek Stevenson, very, very good, and he's going into his second year. Jalen Johnson getting scammed out of a top 100, even though he's an all-pro player. I need an explanation from the NFL, by the way. Jalen Johnson is probably, if he's not the best corner in the NFL, he's top 3, and he didn't make the top 100 over some guys like Jalen Ramsey just because of name value. Kind of crazy if you're the NFL for doing that, but we'll move on for now. You brought in Byard. You have Brisker when he's healthy. Even if you don't, you now have Jonathan Owens back there. I mean, Terrell Smith's looked pretty good. There's a lot of help there in that secondary. Joshua Blackwell being there. They got depth. They got depth for days in that secondary. And then you look at the Titans. The Titans are going to be a new look too because they have no Derrick Henry. They have Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears at the running back spot. And I don't really know why, because Tony Pollard kind of just feels like he's taking away from Tyjae Spears. It'd be different. Like, Derrick Henry and Tyjae Spears, they complementing each other. To me, Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears do very similar things. I don't know why you'd have both. Spears is the younger version. I don't know why you'd have Tony Pollard there. Obviously, with Will Levis being the starting QB, you don't really know if it's going to be good Will Levis or what are we doing, Will Levis. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins is still around, but realistically, what do you expect out of him? So this game is going to be fun. They also did add Tyler Boyd, by the way. I'm not too concerned about him at the moment, though. Realistically, though, there's not much going on in this game for the Titans. I got 10 confidence points on the Bears. I think the Bears will have a really good season, and I just don't think the Titans are all that great, to be honest with you. So we'll move on, but I got the Bears with 10 confidence points. Next, we got the New England Patriots against the Cincinnati Bengals. This should be a fun game as well. The Patriots, probably not going to be a great team this year, but I'm interested because I got Ramondre Stevenson in my backfield, and they do have Jacoby Brissett playing week 1 instead of Drake May. But Ramondre Stevenson, for some of you fantasy owners, he could get a lot of carries, and in PPR leagues, if he has receptions as well, from just dump offs, because these are not really the greatest situation of an offense, so there might be their offensive line's not good, so they might dump it off a lot. Ramondre Stevenson could have a sneaky good year. Other than that, the Patriots are going to be very, very bad. I don't really buy into their offensive line to begin with. Jalen Polk might be interesting at the receiver. They have Demario Douglas coming back, but for the most part here with the Patriots, I'm not sold. Whereas the Bengals, obviously, T. Higgins being there. You obviously have Jamar Chase still there. Chase Brown now the lead back there. I know technically it's Zach Moss, but Zach Moss ain't the lead back. He ain't. We'll see. Well, I'm telling you, watch week 1 and come back and say that Zach Moss is the lead back. And if he is the lead back for week 1, he ain't going to hold the job very long. Chase Brown, I'm telling you right now, he's going to win that job by, at the latest, week 5. At the latest, week 5. So if you're in a fantasy draft and you're hitting that maybe like that 12th round, and you're like, you know what, I need some running back depth, and you want some big time starting upside on a team that Joe Mixon was a top running back on, a top 15, top 20 running back on, go with Chase Brown. Chase Brown's going to get the job done. Watch. But the Bengals, I do have them beating the Patriots. 11 confidence points on that. Bengals, I don't expect to be dropping this match. You should easily win it. Then we get to Houston going up against the Indianapolis Colts. I'm excited to see this game simply because I do have some stake here in Anthony Richardson as my QB. In one of my dynasties, I'm in 2 dynasties, but I do have some stake in Anthony Richardson to see what he's able to do after last year, his season getting cut way too short after either 3 or 4 games. But he did look good going into the season. Unfortunately, he just got hurt. Then you got the Texans, obviously second year to C.J. Stroud. This is the matchup of second year QB. C.J. Stroud, obviously the best quarterback last year in the draft, turned that Texans franchise around, took them to the playoffs, has Tank Dell there. They obviously have Nico Collins, who was made to look like a star last year and hopefully continues that. Dalton Schultz, who had a very good season. They added Joe Mixon. And I'd even mention that they added Stephon Diggs as potentially, kind of like Keenan Allen, a receiver 3. I know. Could be interesting there. And a worst case scenario receiver 2. I don't really think that he's going to overtake Nico Collins. He might take some into Tank Dell. It might put Tank Dell in the slot. But I think the Texans are going to be a very fun team to watch. I think they will be a high-powered offense. The Colts, I think, could stick with a lot of teams. I just don't see them winning this game. I do have 4 confidence points on the Texans. Jacksonville against Miami. I'm not the most excited I've been for a game. I'm not gonna lie. The Jaguars, really, there's nothing there that's really exciting me. I mean, Brian Thomas might be very exciting for them if Trevor Lawrence can get him the ball. I mean, ETN's there. Other than that, I don't really have too much to say about the Jaguars and what they've done. The Dolphins, similar story. They do have, obviously, Devon Achane healthy, which could be very big for them this season if he can stay healthy. He was kind of the X factor last season when they did have him, because they obviously have Raheem Mostert there, who is the lead back, or at least was the lead back last year. Could see some of that eaten up this season by Achane. They have a capable running back that they brought in the draft, Jalen Wright. Obviously, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle still being around are big bonuses there for Tua Tagovailoa. So the Dolphins, like I said, they got some talent. They got a lot of offensive power. The Jaguars, I don't think they can say the same. So I do have 12 confidence points for the Jaguars to lose. I almost mispronounced that. I almost said on the Jaguars. I'm putting 12 on the Dolphins to win. I'm putting 12 on the Dolphins to win. That's simple. Next, we get Carolina against New Orleans. I'm interested in this game, and I don't know why I put 13 confidence points on this game, because I'm starting to second guess myself. But you know what? I put it down, so I'm going to keep it. The Saints, led by Derek Carr, Alvin Kamara. You might see some Kendre Miller this year. Receiving room, kind of just Olave. Juwan Johnson, not too much going on in that receiver room. Michael Thomas is no longer there. A.T. Perry getting some buzz. Maybe they go to Bub Means. Saints offense ain't looking the greatest. But the Panthers, last year, let's face the facts. Last year, the Panthers were abysmal. They were terrible. They were terrible last year. Bryce Young, I do not think was as bad as what people are making it out to be. I get Bryce Young looked very bad last season. I get Bryce Young probably was not a top 25 QB last season. I want to relax on the Bryce Young hate. I do think Bryce Young just had a bad year. I think he will reel it in. If what I've seen out of college out of Bryce Young, I think he is a very capable NFL QB. They had him up in a bad situation last year. It's gotten better this year. Xavier Legette is now there to help in that receiving room. Deontay Johnson is now there to help in that receiving room. So I get the initial concern with Bryce Young. Jonathan Brooks is on the PUP list, will be back later this season. I do understand the concern because Bryce Young did not look good last year. And you had C.J. Stroud do what C.J. Stroud did. I get it. I think Bryce Young is a solid QB. I don't know if he's a solid NFL QB. If anything, he's got to be better than some of the other QBs in the league. I mean, there's some QBs that are just real questionable, man. They're just real questionable. And they're starting QBs. Bryce Young, though, year 2, I think he'll bounce back. I don't necessarily think he's going to be a great quarterback this season, but I do think that he will put to waste some of those concerns that a lot of people had about his season last year. I do think he will kind of shrug off some of those negative connotations going around when it comes to him being the starting quarterback. But with that being said, I am taking the Saints. I do think the Saints will win this game still. Panthers, while I did just say they did kind of upgrade Bryce Young's situation, the Panthers still aren't a great team, and that tells you how bad they were last year. They were bad. So we'll move on. Vikings and Giants we got next. I got 5 confidence points on this one. I kind of rethinking this. The Vikings don't have J.J. McCarthy. Obviously, Sam Darnold will be the starting QB this season. Justin Jefferson being there is a huge bonus to any QB. I could go to the Vikings and pass to Justin Jefferson. He is one of, if not the best receivers in the entire NFL. He creates a lot of separation. He makes big plays. Justin Jefferson is that guy. Unfortunately, for the Bears, he is that good. Justin Jefferson is that good. Now, you pair that with Aaron Jones being brought in from the Packers, Ty Chandler potentially getting a increased role this season. He did look good there towards the end of last season. What can Jordan Addison do now in year 2 for him? There's a lot to look at when it comes to the Vikings. There's not much tight end play at the moment. I believe Johnny Munt is scheduled to start week 1 because TJ Hawkinson is out. And then you got the Giants. And the Giants, the only reason I'm so confident the Vikings are going to win is because when you look at the Giants, man, what am I looking at? What am I looking at when I look at the Giants? Devin Singletary. You're not mistaken when you hear me saying that. Devin Singletary is RB1 there. Now, this ain't no shade towards Devin Singletary, but Devin Singletary on most teams is probably an RB2, maybe even an RB3. The Giants said, nah, we see him as an RB1. We see him as an RB1. That scares me. Because you lost Saquon Barkley, one of a top 5 running back in the NFL, and you replaced him with Devin Singletary. That's just not good enough. And then you might be saying, well, Tyrone Tracy might have a big year, a little bit of a gadget player out of Purdue, had some upside once they transitioned him to being a running back instead of a receiver, has that pass-catching ability out of the backfield. We don't know how much of a role Tyrone Tracy will have this season when it comes to them. You look at their first-round pick, Malik Neighbors. Very good player in his own right. Does Daniel Jones get him the ball? Does he get him the ball? Because simply put enough, Daniel Jones, to this point in his career, has not been good at getting his receivers the ball. Theo Johnson, I think, will be the tight end 1 there. And they didn't spend a very high pick on Theo Johnson. It was a middle round pick, and he's the best tight end on their team. So when you look at it's a young team because they've just done a very bad job on the offense of putting pieces together. You look at RB1 potentially being Tyrone Tracy, and this isn't anything against Tyrone Tracy because I think he could be a very good player. But going into week 1, if your best bet is that Tyrone Tracy beats Devin Singletary out for the job, that's scary. If your best bet is that Daniel Jones won't affect Malik Neighbors, that's scary. When your best bet is that a middle round tight end, Theo Johnson's the best tight end on your roster, that's scary. I get it. Like Tank Dell last season, there's people that come out and they impress. This isn't situations where I play my way onto the field. It's a situation of the talent that they have there is simply just not good enough. They're simply just not good enough to be starters in the NFL at this point. So it creates this big opportunity for Tyrone Tracy. It creates this big opportunity for Theo Johnson. Malik Neighbors is good enough to be in the NFL and is good enough to be a receiver 1 on almost every single team in the NFL. However, is their quarterback good enough to even be a QB1? We saw last year Mac Jones playing for the Patriots, and now he's backing up in Jacksonville. And you want me to believe that Daniel Jones, who has consistently failed with the Giants, is going to all of a sudden make it? You think all of a sudden, just because Malik Neighbors and Theo Johnson are there, and Tyrone Tracy is a little bit of a gadget player for them, you think all of a sudden the Giants are going to make it? That's crazy. That's crazy. You're relying on the youth. You didn't make any moves. What did you do in the offseason? I mean, there's no impactful moves from the Giants. You're still with the same problem with day 1 that you had the last 2 years. because of Daniel Jones. You're at the same problem as you were at the beginning of the offseason because you lost Saquon Barkley and you replaced him with a dude that's 3 or 4 tiers below Saquon Barkley. You didn't replace him with a guy that is consistently been a RB1, like a DeAndre Swift. You didn't replace him with a guy that's even consistently been an RB2. And this isn't hate towards Singletary. He lost his job in Buffalo. He was the lead back there, and he gave it up. And you expect to see a jump from him? Devin Singletary's also been in the league for a while. He's not like, oh, it's going into his 3rd year. He might have a big jump. I have no problem with Devin Singletary. What I have a problem with is that the Giants think he is an RB1. That's the crazy part to me. That's kind of like the Bengals on paper saying Zach Moss is an RB1. Simply put, they're good players. They just aren't lead backs. And the Giants, you lost one of the top 5 running backs in the NFL, and you replaced him with maybe a guy that's in the top 30. That's just not acceptable. That's just not acceptable. So when I talk about the Giants, I passionately was talking about it. The Vikings are going to win this game. They are going to win this game. And I want to like the Giants. They got KT, my boy, Kayvon Thibodeau over there. They got Casey Rogers, my boy, over there. I don't think he made the final roster, but they gave him a chance. I'm a big fan of what Malik Nabers could potentially be in the NFL. I like Theo Johnson. I have Theo Johnson on my dynasty league, on my sleeper league. But at the end of the day, with Daniel Jones as QB, that's where the first problem lies. Can he get the job done? Will he get the job done? And until I see that out of Daniel Jones, I cannot buy into this Giants team. I just can't. So the Vikings will win that game. A little bit of an impassioned rant there about the Giants. We get to the Vegas Raiders and the Chargers. Vegas Raiders and the Chargers next. Vegas, Gardner Minshew won out the job. It seems like Gardner Minshew always finds a way to start in the NFL, man. It doesn't matter where he goes. There's always some sort of controversy or camp battle that allowed. I mean, Aidan O'Connell should have been the starting QB, and he lost the job to Minshew. You look at he was the QB there for a while down there in Jacksonville. He was the QB there on the Colts. He always seems to find a way to be a starting NFL QB. He's like everybody's just. We don't have a consistent. Like he's a guy that like the Giants would use, honestly. He's just a guy that if you just don't have your QB situation figured out and you're lost at what to do, he's kind of just the typical plug and play QB, man. He's just the QB that everybody gets. If you're not convinced about your QB play, you bring in Minshew, he wins the job. Minshew plays for a season, then he goes somewhere else. That's kind of the story with Gardner Minshew, right? It's kind of the story with him, and it'd be interesting to see what he can do. He has Devontae Adams there. He has Jacoby Myers there. He now has Brock Bowers there. He still has Matthew Mayer there from last season. No Josh Jacobs there. Could be a little bit of an interesting thing because Zamir White will be your lead back. Then you look at the Chargers, the team they're going up against, and this is, once again, I just don't like saying this about the Chargers, just like I don't really like saying it about the Giants because there are guys that I'm fans of on both teams, right? Chargers, big Justin Herbert fan. Big Justin Herbert fan. I'm very excited to see what he can do. I got Kamani Vidal stake in my dynasty league as a guy that I drafted in like the 28th round. But the Chargers, man, they have lost a lot. No Eckler back, which might be a good thing for them. So don't go saying anything about that yet, because what they did is they went and got Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, and Kamani Vidal to replace Eckler. And Eckler was a little bit on the decline last year. Had some injury bang-ups there at points in the season. But Gus Edwards, we saw what he's able to do in Baltimore. He looked good. J.K. Dobbins, a guy that, once again, unironically, coming from Baltimore, just couldn't stay healthy. But when he was healthy, it was not a horrible running back. He's an okay guy, fill-in. And then Kamani Vidal, a very interesting player. If he gets time, he could be very, very good for the Chargers. the problem is he played at Troy last year, and while he did have a lot of carries at Troy and he looked really good at Troy, it is a big step up going from the NFL because obviously Troy is not playing the SEC teams every week. They're not necessarily playing the best of the best, but Kamani Vidal is a guy that was very impressive last season in college football. If he can get time, could be interesting. But you're looking at a team that's receiver one right now. It's Josh Palmer. And while I do have Josh Palmer stake in fantasy, do we really think Josh Palmer is a receiver one? Or is it just a result of his situation? Ladd McConkey might take it over. Quentin Johnston had an opportunity to separate himself from the pack last year. We did not see that out of Quentin Johnston. And he was, from reports, not even a lock for a top 4 receiver role on this team. Brendan Rice being brought in could be a little bit of an interesting option for them. But yeah, for the most part, I think DJ Chark is there now. But the Chargers, they just don't have a lot of talent for Justin Herbert to work with. The offensive line did improve. They brought Joe Alt in, which is good for Herbert's sake, but who's he throwing the ball to? Who's he throwing the ball? Josh Palmer? Is it really just going to be the Josh Palmer show? And if it is Josh Palmer capable of that big of a workload? I don't know. Josh Palmer looks good in spurts. Josh Palmer looked good when he wasn't the primary guy, right? Now he's the guy. He is the guy when it comes to that receiving room. At least on paper going into week 1. Maybe Ladd McConkey takes it over. Maybe Quentin Johnston shows that last year was a little bit of a fluke. But right now, on paper, Josh Palmer is that guy. So, do you trust that? I don't necessarily trust that going into week 1, so I will be going with the Raiders to win. 6 confidence points on that. Broncos at Seahawks. We do have a fun game here. Bo Nix, another guy that I'm a big fan of. Obviously, a lot of these Oregon players I'm big fans of. Oregon or Illinois, I'm probably a big fan of you. But Bo Nix, excited to see him go this season. I don't think Troy Franklin will be doing much this season, unfortunately for him. The Broncos, new look receiving room. Obviously, Cortland Sutton's still around. But Tim Patrick did not end up making this team. Jerry Jeudy obviously left last season. So a little bit of an interesting new receiving room here for the Broncos. And then the running back room, very fun running back room with Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin. No longer has Samaje Perine to worry about, but you do have Audric Estime there. So the Broncos could be a little bit of an interesting situation. Not the greatest receiver talent, but could be fun. Could be a fun offense. I think Bo Nix could elevate a lot of those guys. I would like to see Troy Franklin get going, but unfortunately they are acting as if Troy probably is on the outs right now, looking to find some playing time. Tough to see as a player so good at Oregon. But unfortunately, that's just how the NFL goes. Some guys perform better than others in practice, and some guys are more game day players. And in order to get to game day, you're gonna have to do well in practice. Unfortunately. With that being said, you look at the Seahawks. Seahawks still returning Geno Smith. They did pick up Sam Howell via trade last year. Kind of shocked there wasn't more buzz about that. Sam Howell kind of just gifted the keys to the kingdom here in Seattle. Seattle can move on from Geno Smith here after the end of this season. Sam Howell will be the guy. You might even see Sam Howell play this season. That's kind of what I'm looking at. I'm surprised there was no camp buzz about that, or at least none that I heard, none that made it to national public media. Maybe if you're a deep Seahawks fan, maybe you did see some of that buzz. I didn't see any national buzz about that. Like I saw the buzz about Aiden O'Connell missing it and losing the starting job. But I did not see anything really acting as if it was anything other than Geno. You look at this team, DK's there, JSN's there, Tyler Lockett's there, K9, Kenneth Walker is there. A little bit of a fun team. Defense projects to be a pretty good defense this season. Day one, unfortunately for Bo Nix, they're going up against a team that is capable. If they're going up like against a Chargers, or they're going up against maybe a Giants, or one of those teams that it just doesn't really make a lot of sense what they did. Maybe I'd have the Broncos winning. No, I don't though. Seahawks win. I got 9 confidence points on them. Dallas at Cleveland. I got 7 points here on the Cowboys. Shout out to CeeDee Lamb, my first pick in the Dynasty League this season. A little bit of nerves picking him. Because I believe because there were some QBs that went off the board. I believe Breece Hall was there. I believe Jamar Chase was there. I believe Amon-Ra St. Brown was there. And I was like, you know what? I'm taking CeeDee Lamb because once CeeDee Lamb signs this contract, CeeDee Lamb's going to be the best receiver in the NFL for years to come. Now, CeeDee Lamb, obviously, there's some competition there. Tyreek Hill, there's Amon-Ra, but Jamar Chase. CeeDee Lamb's my guy. It's confirmed now. He is my guy. Cowboys, you look at that team, the receiving room, a little questionable. Brandon Cook's there as receiver 2 potentially, unless Jalen Tolbert really takes away that role from him. Other than that, not much going on in that receiving room. Running back room, very crowded now. Zeke Elliott back in Dallas. Expected to be the lead back for most of this offseason this preseason process. And then they added Dalvin Cook, who could potentially get into the fray. And then all of a sudden, they've pulled Rico Dowdle from special teams because they want him to be more involved. And I have Rico Dowdle in fantasy, but I don't recommend it. I do not recommend any of these running backs in the backfield of the Cowboys because to me, what this sounds like is it is going to be a very crowded backfield, a running back by committee. If there is a guy to break out, it will be Rico Dowdle simply because I think they will use him a lot more in passing situations. But this just is a crowded backfield if you're the Cowboys. It's not a great situation for anybody to really break away from the pack. Obviously, Zeke Elliott was a big-time player for Dallas in the past, so how much of what they do this season is kind of just going to be letting Zeke do what Zeke does because of Zeke's legacy there. Or do they reel him back in a little bit once he doesn't start to do well? Or maybe he does do well. I don't know. But if he starts to show a lack of production, do they reel him in or do they just ride with Zeke because he used to be so reliable for them? I don't know. Does Dalvin Cook enter the fray? He's on the practice squad right now, but he says he could still be an RB1. Is that true? Rico Dowdle, we expect to take the leap. We don't know really what is going to happen with this backfield. Very confusing. I would not be picking any of those backfield players. And then you still have Dak Prescott waiting to sign. He ain't put pen to paper yet. Dak Prescott has not signed. CD has. Dak has not. And Dak, I think, is going to wait till the end of the season to sign. But the longer you wait on that, the more dangerous it starts to become for the Cowboys. That ain't my problem. I do have Dak in fantasy, but he ain't sitting out. That ain't my problem. But that's a Jerry Jones problem, right? That's his problem. But Dak Prescott, I do expect to have a big year. He's playing for a contract. If he wants to get paid the $60 million that's being talked about, he's got to have a good year. He can't come in and just have an okay season. He's got to take Dallas somewhere, man. They cannot be doing what they do in the playoffs. They got to go far, at least to the conference championship, if you are worth $60 million, Dak Prescott. That's the only way you're getting it from Jerry Jones. I'm going to be honest with you. If not, congratulations. There's a lot of teams on the open market that are going to want a guy like Dak Prescott to be their QB. We saw it this year with Kirk Cousins, and Dak Prescott, believe it or not, is a step up from Kirk Cousins. Somebody will take Dak, and somebody will pay Dak, but the problem is, will it be the Cowboys? That's a topic for another day. But you look at the Browns. Browns obviously have Jerry Jeudy now. Nick Chubb won't be around, so Jerome Ford will be maintaining his RB1 dominance in the time that Nick Chubb is no longer there. He's there, but he's just on the PUP list, right? Deshaun Watson being there. The Browns, I'm not too high on them, man. I'm just not really that high on the Browns. I got the Cowboys winning with 7 confidence points. We get to the Commanders and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Buccaneers are going to be a little bit of an interesting team, and I'm proud that I can actually pick a former Oregon player to win. Bucky Irving is on the Bucs, and we are picking the Bucs to win with 8 confidence points. I like what they got going down there, right? I mean, obviously you got Evans and you got Godwin, right? You have Baker back. Rachaad White's there. Bucky now added to the fray. Could be a little bit interesting there when it's all said and done on the offensive side. And then you look at the Commanders. First game, Jaden Daniels. I think he'll be fine. I have stake in him in my Dynasty League, so I ain't hating on no Jaden Daniels. Unfortunately, it's just the first game, and who's he throwing it to? Is Terry McLaurin really going to take that big of a leap to be the just clear-cut number one? And I know Terry McLaurin's been the number one for this team in the past. I'm not saying that he's not. I'm saying, can he take that jump to be a Jamar Chase of a team? Can he take that jump and be the Justin Jefferson of a team? Or is what he is? Does somebody else break out of that receiving room? They got McCaffrey, Luke McCaffrey, CMC's brother. You got De'Ami Brown potentially making some noise there for him. Ben Sinnott, they used a pick on. The Commanders could be a little interesting, but it's just a lot of unknown when it comes to that team. A lot of question marks. And as long as that's the case, I ain't going to be picking the Commanders. So, Buccaneers, I got 8 points. I got 8 points on the Buccaneers. Rams in Detroit. This is going to be a fun game. I believe Puka will play. He's been questionable for the last however many weeks going into this game. If I had to hedge bets, I'd put Puka Nacua on. He'd be playing in this game. Even if he doesn't, Cooper Kupp will be. Cooper Kupp should be fine. I don't want you guys to think Cooper Kupp's washed. What caused him problems was injuries. When he played last year, he was good. Colby Parkinson now there as well, kind of filling the gap for Tyler Higbee because he won't be playing this season. Kyren Williams, one of the best running backs from last season, coming back. Blake Corum now potentially splitting some time there with Kyren, maybe eating into some of Kyren's time. So if you're drafting fantasy and you do want to take Kyren Williams, I would hedge your bets and I would pick up Blake Corum as a handicap and handicap them or handcuff them together. I would do that because Kyren Williams goes down. All Kyren Williams volume goes to Blake Corum. You're going to pair them together. You're going to pair them together. And you might just want to pair them together for the simple fact that Blake Corum, I mean, you look at what he did at Michigan. He can take over a backfield role if Kyren Williams ain't careful. Now, Kyren Williams had a really good season. Kyren Williams does not seem as if he's lost ground in that battle. But if a guy can do it, Blake Corum can. I'd put a lot of stock. If you're getting Kyren Williams, you want Blake Corum as well. Either way, I got 15 points on the Lions. Lions, obviously, Amon-Ra being there. Jared Goff had a pretty decent season last year. Was able to lead them into being prominent. The Lions, do we think Jameson Williams is going to be great? I don't know. But Jahmyr Gibbs, year 2. David Montgomery, I believe, is in a contract year. Sam Laporta, one of the best tight ends last season as a rookie. We'll see probably a jump here for year 2 for him. Just when you look at it, the Lions, a lot of hype going around about can they live up to what they were last year. I got 15 confidence points that they will, at least in week 1. Then we got the Jets in San Francisco. Aaron Rodgers will be playing once again for the Jets after getting hurt literally a minute into the game last year. First drive he took last year, he got hurt, I believe. So we're going to get to see that. Garrett Wilson obviously being there will very much benefit from Aaron Rodgers being there because I do think Aaron Rodgers will be a lot better than what they had last year. But Garrett Wilson will see a lot of production this year if I had to guess. Malachi Corley could be added into the fray. Breece Hall, a little bit of a good option there if you want it because Aaron Rodgers, he might, because they do some stuff, some weird stuff, or at least he did in Green Bay. He does some weird stuff where they'll run play actions and maybe even dump it off to a running back so you get a PPR touchdown from 1 yard out from Breece Hall. Could be interesting what they do there with Aaron Rodgers there. The 49ers, you look at them, they have all the talent in the world. They just re-signed Ayuk. They have Purdy coming back. They got CMC coming back. We're not even talking about their rookie that I think could be impactful if he does find some time because he's very explosive in Garindo. Isaac Garindo there at the running back position. I believe he's actually RB3 for him. I do think Jordan Mason is above him, I believe. Maybe it's Elijah Mitchell. I don't know if Elijah Mitchell's still on the team, though. But you got those guys who could all be impactful in the running game. And then, obviously, you still have Kittle. You have Also, shout out to Ricky Pearsall. He unfortunately did get shot in the chest. I believe he's fine now, but unfortunate to hear. Really, really sad thing to hear. You never want to hear something like that. So, shout out to Ricky Pearsall. Hopefully, you're doing well. Hopefully, you're doing good in your recovery. Pearsall, we're all thinking about you and hope you recover very well. But he's a guy who could get in the fray this year. Jacob Cowing, a guy that I think kind of got a little underrated coming out of the draft because he was at Arizona. Jacob Cowing could be a guy for them. Deebo Samuel being there obviously is a guy that you think he got a lot in the tank. So when you look at that 49ers team, there's some talent there that could be a big threat for some teams to go up against. And the 49ers are supposed to be one of the best offenses in the NFL, if not the best offense in the NFL. So at the end of the day, the Jets, even though I do think they will bounce back and have a better year, and I think Breece Hall will be good, I think Garrett Wilson will be good, and I think all that, I think so highly of them this season, I do not believe you are beating the 49ers. I just cannot get behind it. I got the 49ers winning, and I got 14 confidence points on that. If you like this video, let me know down below. Thank you for watching. Anyways, we will be back here with college football later this week. We have the Premier League, which I did miss last week, like I said. But we will be doing NFL, college football, Premier League every single week. This is the place to see the predictions going into them. Next week we will have it as well. You'll be seeing this on Wednesday. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.